guys, welcome back to my channel. Did you hear about the sewing machine that went to jail? It just couldn't stop stitching up trouble. Now, let's get to it. My waist measurement is 25 inches. I times it by 3, then times it by 3 again, and after that, I added 5 inches. That gives me a total of 80 inches. If your waist is bigger, feel free to follow the same method to get your number. I'm working with some black fabric. I've already cut it into two 40-inch pieces, which I'll be joining to create an 80-inch length. If you have a longer piece of fabric, you can simply measure out 80 inches. For the pleats, we'll be using a 1.5-inch width. Let's get started. The reason for joining these fabrics together is that I didn't have a long enough piece of material. I would have shown the cutting process, but unfortunately my phone storage was limited, so I couldn't film that part. Now, I'll first join these pieces together. After joining them, we can move on to the next step. I've just finished attaching the two patterns together. After joining them, the total length is 80 inches. Now I'll be hemming the bottom of my skirt. After hemming the bottom of the skirt, press it with an iron to make it stable before moving to your sewing machine to sew it. So, I have my white bias tape and thread, and I've already set up my bobbin with white thread as well. I've also hemmed the bottom edge of my skirt. After hemming, measure half an inch, 1.27 centimeters, up from the hemline. My bias tape is also half an inch, 1.27 centimeters wide. I'll be placing the bias tape a half inch away from the hemline on my skirt. So I'm done sewing my bias tape. As you can see, I left about 2 inches from the bottom edge. Now I'll show you how to fix the Y-strap on the lower part of the skirt. For my bias tape, I used half an inch, 1.27 centimeters. I used a pressing iron to press the bias tape open to 1 inch, 2.54 centimeters. If you have a 1-inch bias tape, that should work fine too. After pressing my bias tape from half an inch to 1 inch, I will sew it onto my fabric, starting at the bottom edge of the skirt. I'll carefully sew along the bottom edge. Since I pressed the tape open, it was a bit difficult to sew. If you're a beginner and find it challenging, you can use hemming tape, which acts like a fabric glue. This will make it easier to sew the bias tape in place. I've finished sewing my 1-inch bias tape, and now I'll be pressing my fabric to create pleats. To form the pleats, I'll be using a guide of 1.5 inches. Mark this measurement along the entire length of the fabric, which is 80 inches. Although some footage was missing from my video, you should continue marking at 1.5-inch intervals down to the bottom of the fabric. After marking, count each set of 3 1.5-inch sections. Overlap these sections using the guide to click them into place. 1, 2, 3, overlap. Press each pleat with an iron, ensuring they are evenly spaced and aligned. Now, I'll be sewing the pleats with a stitch length of 3.2 inches for the front panel, which measures 40 inches. Remember, I mentioned joining my fabric with another 40-inch piece for the back. For the back pleats, I'll be stitching at exactly 3 inches to provide a bit more room for the bum area. In total, this makes the full piece 80 inches. So there's a slight difference. 3.2 inches for the front pleats and 3 inches for the back. I'll be sewing stitches along the pleats, stitching approximately 3.2 inches from the top. I'm just going to mark this distance with chalk right now. I've finished sewing the pleats, so let me walk you through the process. For the front part, I measured 3.2 inches, about 8.13 centimeters from the top. Remember, we divided the material into two. I left 3.2 inches, 8.113 centimeters, for the front pleats, and 3 inches, about 7.62 centimeters, for the back pleats. Now I'll be attaching the zipper. I'll be using an invisible zip. I'll start 5 inches in and take a half-inch seam allowance because we still need to join the skirt's band. So I'm using 4.5 inches plus an additional half-inch for the top seam allowance. After sewing the first 5 inches, I'll continue sewing the rest of the fabric. I've finished sewing from the 5 inches I left for the zipper, so now the only remaining step is to attach the zipper. I'll be using an invisible zipper, which I've already ironed open, as you would normally do. I didn't film the part where I attached the zipper due to space constraints. If you like and subscribe, it will encourage me to make more videos. If you'd like a tutorial on how to insert a zipper, please request it in the comments below. I've finished attaching the zipper. Request a video if you'd like a tutorial. Now this is my skirt, and I'll be moving on to the band. The band, I'll be using a 4-inch piece, which will be 2 inches when folded in half. I'll iron a half inch of one edge inside, and then join it this way.